Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm very excited to bring you a look at the brand new Transformers Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 Collection G2 Universe Shadowstrip. This toy is very interesting because it is obviously based off of the Generation 2 version of Dragstrip, the Stunticon and member of Menasor, and it gets a deco that is very, very close to the original prototype, because as we know, G2 Menasor was never actually released at retail, and only a few sample copies exist out there. Oddly enough, they gave this character a different name, which would hint at him being a separate character, but they also say he's from specifically the G2 universe, which wouldn't really be necessary if he was a different character. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. It might be one of those things like the Velocitron Scourge, where he's just kind of a mishmash of different concepts. But luckily, headcanon's a thing, so you can consider this a new character, or you can just pretend it's G2 Dragstrip. And according to the Transformers design team, I think specifically Mark Mayer, they do plan on getting all of the G2 Stunticons out there in some form in some way. I don't know if they'll all be through the Velocitron collection, or if they'll be kind of spread out in different places. I don't know if they'll all have the same names or different names. We'll just have to wait and see on that. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Shadowstrip's packaging, then we'll open it up. We'll take a quick look at the instructions, and we'll see Shadowstrip himself in vehicle, robot, and combiner modes. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today. And then at the end of the video, I'll get my final thoughts. So Shadowstrip comes in your special Velocitron packaging, which mimics the shape of the old G1 packaging, but it has its own unique stylings with that blue accents everywhere. You get your Velocitron symbol, you get his name with his universe right there, a bunch of logos. You get a render of the toy on the top, and then some artwork of the vehicle mode, firing the blasters from the top. Get some really nice artwork of Shadowstrip's robot mode. And on this side, you get a close-up of that artwork. And then here, we get renders of the toy in both vehicle and robot modes. It takes 16 steps to transform. And unlike the mainline Legacy figures, this one doesn't come with a QR code. And they don't tend to do things like that for exclusives. And I guess that's because not everybody can get them, and they don't want, kids especially to feel like they're getting left behind, so I get it. Though some official word from the Transformers team on exactly who this character is would be a nice substitute, because I still don't know if this is supposed to be Dragstrip, just under a new name, or an entirely new character. I will say it is kind of weird that they actually spent the time and money to trademark a new name for this guy, when they could have just called it G2 Dragstrip, but okay. So anyway, that's the packaging. It's very nice looking. You guys probably know how I feel about the Velocitron packaging so far. I actually do prefer it over the regular Legacy packaging. Now, I will say the new Evolution stuff looks really nice, and once I get a look at that, I may end up preferring that over this, but as of right now, this is my favorite current packaging. Okay, here's the instruction sheet for Shadowstrip, and you can see the render that pops very nicely off the dark background there. You get his name, you get all your logos and stuff. Right here, this shows you how to place his weapons on top of the vehicle mode. And then we get a transformation from race car to robot, which continues around on back. And what's useful about this is that the regular Legacy Dragstrip, he came packaged in robot mode. So this gives you, kind of reverse instructions for that. Pretty cool. Then we get showing you how to have him hold his pistols here in his hands, or attach them to the backs of his legs, or combine them into a double-barreled weapon. Now you'll notice that there's no instructions for the combiner mode, which really is just, the vehicle mode split in half. I would imagine that those will be included in whatever the G2 equivalent of Menasor, what Motormaster is going to be, since that's what they did for the G1 versions. So I would, keep your eyes peeled there. It's probably going to show up on that instruction sheet. And here's our look at Shadowstrip's vehicle mode. And the first thing I'll say is that this thing is very nicely painted. First of all, the hubcaps are all painted gold, unlike the G1 version. He gets this nice gold striping here. He gets that checkered flag design from the old toy. The engine block is gold striping on the spoiler, gold striking on the front here. And then he's got this really beautiful pearly blue color on the head/driver's seat, right here in the front, and then on the weapons too. I mean, this thing is just gorgeous to look at. It is a very nice and sleek looking color scheme for this vehicle mode. Now here's a group shot with Legacy Dragstrip, as well as the Combiner Wars G2 drag strip from the Menasor box set. Now first I want to compare these two since they're the same mold. You can see no molding differences, just very, very different color schemes. And I have to admit, I really prefer the black on gold look over the yellow and red, McDonald's colors. Like the drag strip design, it's very iconic, it's very cool, but kind of just gives me this weird ketchup and mustard vibe, especially with the use of like the darker yellows, makes it look like dried up mustard. This guy, for me, is just way cooler looking. He looks like something that was designed to be very eye-catching, and I do have to admit, I am a sucker for black on gold. Like black on gold, black on silver, those looks just always do it for me. Now, the Combiner Wars drag strip, you can see he's very different looking from this one, both in form and coloration. Now, the form is just attributed to the fact that it is a different mold. It was a mold that had to work for multiple characters because of what the budget was like for Combiner Wars. So it's not the six-wheel drag racer that drag strip is supposed to be. It's one that's supposed to work for both him and Mirage. So it's just a regular, four-wheel body, very different shape, more like, I would say, more like a Formula One car. And then the color scheme, you can see, is very different. Has no gold on it, has a very heavy use of blue, with this like blue and purple checkering going on in the spoiler, and then even uses a lot of yellow here. Now the reason for this, allegedly, because I don't think anyone's actually been able to prove it, when somebody at Hasbro was designing the color palette for that G2 Menasor set, they apparently went and ripped off a Digibash that was made by a fan artist. And if you compare the two, the actual physical product and the Digibash, they're almost identical. There's some small tweaks, but the things are so much closer to his Digibash than what the G2 Stunticons actually look like, which is pretty much this right here for Dragstrip, that like there's no it's a coincidence. Like somebody clearly ripped off this guy's work and never took accountability for it. So that's a bit of a dark stain on the Transformers team. Now, I don't know who did it. I don't know if they're still with the team. Probably not, because pretty much all the people have been swapped out now. But yeah, it was a pretty low-life thing to do. So yeah, this one, not only do I think it looks better, but it is far more accurate to the source material. I'm honestly not even sure why that artist decided to make the colors so very different from the actual G2 Stunticons, and then why Hasbro decided that was a good thing to copy. Maybe the person that was doing it didn't know better, right? Maybe they just Googled an image and that's what they got, and they're like, all right, let's use this, not even knowing that that was really far off the mark for the color scheme. We'll probably never know for sure unless somebody fesses up, but it's a little bit of interesting history there for you. Now we get to see Shadowstrip in his robot mode, and in my opinion, he looks just as sleek as he does in the vehicle mode. All that gold and black with that nice metallic blue accent. You can see on his face, he retains the red visor that we see on the G1 version, but then his face also gets painted red, albeit a lighter shade, so at least it doesn't completely blend in. And I guess they did that to make him toy accurate. But you know what definitely is toy accurate, funny enough? The guy has no Decepticon logo on him anywhere. Not a G1, not a G2, and you might think that's a mistake, but actually, the actual original Generation 2 drag strip had no faction symbol on him, so it is accurate. Now, personally, I'm a little disappointed. As a big G2 fan, I would love to see the Generation 2 Decepticon logo, stamped on this guy somewhere, but at least I can't say that they're not sticking to the source material. He's not a one-for-one recreation as far as the deco, but they at least got that much right. So yeah, looks very cool. Tolerances are still great on this guy. He's got all the posability the other one has, which is pretty much full posability, except for the wrists. Those don't move because of the way the panels here attach, kind of block any wrist joint from being engineered in there. Back's legs look okay. Again, he does cheat his transformation with like a fake engine block, but whatever. If you're not bothered by that before, you won't be now. And overall, I think he looks really good. Here again are the two drag strips for comparison. So we got our Legacy, Combiner Wars here, and yet again I do prefer the colors on this new one over the regular Legacy toy. Especially now that we're seeing robot bits, when it comes to the helmet, I don't really like the color layout of the G1 drag strip. Like, on the one hand, it is more of a color breakup, so there is more, different paints being used and everything, but I don't know, this looks more cohesive to me, whereas his is a little disjointed looking. Like the fact that his helmet is all like the same color and looks like an actual helmet instead of, I don't know, a headband and earmuffs. So overall, yeah, I think he ends up being a better looking toy. And then this thing right here, well, I don't know. I do actually like the deco on this guy, for what it's worth. I think his face is done up very well, where you have that silver, and then you have like the cool red eyes that kind of sink down into the faceplate, and it's hard to see if there's like a little black border between the two. So he's got this really cool like Terminator vibe going on. And even though his coloration is pretty far off from how the character should look, I do like him for what he is. I think this drag strip was probably the best looking Stunticon that came in that G2 set. I don't know, his colors just really pop compared to the others that are a bit more garish. The only thing I don't really like about him is the big bright yellow combiner peg right there. If that had been made either black or blue or maybe even painted up silver or gold, I think it would have looked a lot better. But hey, at least this guy gets his G2 Decepticon symbol, so, you know, he was paying attention in class. He knows what team is supposed to be on. And lastly, here we get to see Dragstrip in his arm mode being attached to Legacy Menasor. And just like the regular Dragstrip, he can obviously only attach to the right arm, because the pegs that these guys attach to are different widths apart depending on the arm. So sadly, you can't just like put two drag strips on there, because I would love to be able to show him off, you know, in tandem with the other drag strip in his arm mode, but you can't really unless you got a second Menasor. So I will say this looks very cool. Obviously, this is meant to go on the Generation 2 Motormaster / Menasor body, so I would expect a lot more purple and blue on that. But this guy looks really good on this body, since this body does have a very heavy use of black himself. And if you don't really care about, you know, canon or making sense, you could totally just use this guy instead of the regular drag strip, because he looks really cool. So it's funny how we're going to spend all this money completing the Stunticons if you go in on them, even knowing how god-awful Breakdown is. And then we're going to apparently just turn right around and do it again, but with different colors, because we're sheep. Sheep going to the slaughter, the Hasbro barbecue slaughter. And this completes our look at the new Transformers Legacy Shadowstrip. Overall, I think this guy is very cool looking. He's right up my alley, being a Generation 2 homage, because I am real big on the G2 stuff. Though he is a bit of an enigma, because we really don't know, is this just another form of drag strip, or is he an entirely new character? Like, is this an actual G2 Stunticon, or is the plan to make an entirely new team of Combiner guys that'll look like the Stunticons, but just be, you know, palette swaps, and in a way, fictionally that makes sense, because Generation 2 Menasor never actually appeared in any kind of fiction, right? His toy's never produced, he's never appeared anywhere. So it is kind of a good opportunity to repurpose those color schemes, or at least something close to them, and just make new characters that may actually be better, because you're not really missing anything by not having characters that never actually appeared in anything. Whereas now we have an opportunity to make 5 new characters. So maybe it's for the best, if that's, you know, the route they're going. But as far as the toy itself, like I said, I adore the color scheme. The black on gold always gets me, and I love that pearly blue color they use for the guns and the helmet. I just think overall he's incredibly sleek looking, and I hate to say it, but I'm looking forward to completing the team. Even though the breakdown is going to be awful, because the G1 breakdown is awful. It's terrible. Total bait and switch on that guy. So yeah, if you're okay with the idea of going in on the Stunticons again, or if you're just looking to have maybe an extra member to swap in on your regular Menasor, I do recommend picking this guy up. Or if you just want a really cool drag racer Decepticon, because this guy, you know, not only does he have the alt mode and everything, but his colors just kind of scream Decepticon more than do anything else. So, you know, you could just headcanon him as somebody else entirely if you want to. So yeah, I do recommend him, though be aware you may be tempted to go in on a second Menasor, which is probably going to run you about $200 or so. So just keep that in mind. Of course, that is just how I feel about this toy. So now I want to know what you all think of Shadowstrip. Do you plan on picking this guy up? Or if you did manage to get your hands on him already, do you like him? Do you prefer seeing him as a G2 drag strip or as his own character? Or do you not want this guy? Maybe you just don't care for repaints, maybe you don't want to collect Stunticons again or at all. Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, so you always get a heads up when I post something new. And thank you for joining me today for this look at the brand new Transformers Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 Collection G2 Universe Shadowstrip. That's a mouthful. And with all that said, I will see you next time.